I'd like you to try something. For the next 24 hours, count how many times you say the words, I'm sorry. Not in the middle of a fight, not after a genuine mistake, just in the normal course of your day. Sorry, can I ask a question? Sorry, I'm running 2 minutes late. Sorry, but I actually disagree. Sorry, I didn't see your email until just now. Sorry, can I get by you? Sorry, this is probably a dumb question. Sorry, I need a minute of your time. If you actually tracked it, I think you would be stunned. Most of us say, I'm sorry, dozens of times a day. And in the vast majority of those instances, we have absolutely nothing to be sorry for. We're not apologizing, we're performing. We're performing smallness. We're announcing to the room that we know we're an inconvenience. We're leading every interaction by telling the other person that our presence, our question, our opinion, our existence, in this particular moment, requires their forgiveness. And we do it so reflexively, so automatically, that we don't even hear it anymore. It's verbal wallpaper, it's filler. It's the word we use to take up less space before we've even been told we're taking up too much. But here's the thing, our words have weight. And when you apologize for things that don't require an apology, you're doing two things at once. You're training the world to believe that your needs are an imposition, and you're actually draining the power from the apology itself, so that when you actually have something to be sorry for, those words don't mean what they should. As an attorney, language is my instrument. I choose every word in a contract, in a brief, in a negotiation, with intention. And yet, in my personal life, I have thrown around, I'm sorry, like confetti for years. Not because I owed anyone an apology, but because somewhere along the way I learned that apologizing for existing was the fastest way to make other people comfortable. That's why, when we come back, I'll be making the case for only saying I'm sorry when you have something to be sorry for. Welcome back to The Case For. I'm your host, Matt Campobasso. Let me be clear about what today's episode is and what it isn't. This is not a case against apologizing. Apologies are actually one of the most important things a human being can offer. A few months ago, I did an entire episode about apologizing to your kids, and I meant every word of it. A genuine apology, one that's earned, specific, and accountable, is one of the most powerful tools in any relationship. This episode is about what happens when you apologize for things that don't warrant an apology. When I'm sorry stops becoming an act of accountability and becomes a reflex, a filler word, a way to shrink yourself before you're asked to shrink yourself. Because the overuse of sorry isn't politeness, it's self-erasure in real time. And most of us, myself included, don't realize we're doing it. I started paying attention to my own sorry habit about 6 months ago. And what I found was uncomfortable. I was apologizing for asking questions in a meeting I was supposed to be leading. I was apologizing for having a different opinion. I would apologize when someone bumped into me. And I would apologize for following up on something that was owed to me. And every single time, I was sending the same message. I know I'm inconveniencing you by being here, by speaking, by needing something, and I'm sorry about that. I am 47 years old. I am a father. I have built a successful career. I have tried cases in front of juries and argued motions in front of judges and negotiated deals worth tens of millions of dollars. And I was saying sorry for asking a question. That tells me that something is broken. So here's my argument. The word sorry should be reserved for moments when you have caused harm, when you've made a mistake, or when you have fallen short of your own standard. It should be specific. It should be intentional. And it should cost you something, not your dignity, but your ego. A real apology is the acknowledgement that you did something wrong and you're willing to own it. Earlier today, I was at the doctor's office and the receptionist at the front desk apologized. I asked her what she was sorry for, and she looked at me surprised and said she didn't know. And I said to her, you should only apologize when you've done something wrong. What most of us are doing with sorry has nothing to do with doing something wrong. We're using it as a social lubricant, as a preemptive shield, as a way to signal that we're safe, that we're not a threat, and that we know our place. And the cost of that habit is significant. It diminishes your credibility, and it teaches the people around you, including your children, that existing with needs is something that we need to apologize for. And as I mentioned, it devalues the apology itself, so that when you genuinely owe someone the words, I'm sorry, they land with the weight of something you've said 50 times that day about nothing. I want to examine where this habit comes from, what it actually costs, what you should say instead, and why protecting the power of your apology is one of the most important things you can do for your self-worth and your relationships. Today we have 4 exhibits. Exhibit A is the apology reflex. Let's start with the mechanics of how this happens, because it's not a character flaw, it's a trained behavior. Most people who over-apologize learned to do it earlier. As children, many of us were taught that the fastest way to resolve tension is to say sorry. Not because we understood what we'd done wrong, but because the word itself was a de-escalation tool. Your teacher's upset, say sorry. Your parent is frustrated, say sorry. Somebody is inconvenienced by something that isn't your fault, say sorry anyway, because it makes the situation easier. Over time, that conditioning becomes automatic. The apology detaches from the act and it becomes a reflex. You're not evaluating whether you did something wrong, you're scanning the environment for tension and deploying sorry as a preemptive measure. It's conflict avoidance disguised as manners. And it does work in the short term. People do respond to it. It will soften a room. Tension will dissipate. But the reason it works is the reason it's corrosive. You're purchasing social ease by selling your own standing. Every unnecessary sorry is a microtransaction. You are paying with a small piece of your authority, your confidence, and your right to take up space in exchange for a moment of comfort. And like any bad deal, the individual cost seems negligible, but the compound cost is enormous. As a lawyer, I would never walk into a negotiation and open with an apology for being there. That would be absurd. It would immediately undermine my position, and my client, if they were there, should fire me. And yet, in my personal and professional life outside the courtroom, I was doing exactly that. I was opening conversations by apologizing for the conversation. Which brings us to Exhibit B, what you're actually saying. I want to break down what the listener hears when you apologize unnecessarily, because it's not what you think you're communicating. When you say, sorry, can I ask a question? What you think you're saying is, I'm being polite and respectful of your time. What the room actually hears is, I'm not sure I'm entitled to speak right now. When you say, sorry, but I disagree, what you think you're saying is, I want to be diplomatic. What the room hears is, I'm about to say something, but I'm not confident enough to say it without a disclaimer. When you say, sorry, I'm late to a meeting you walked into 2 minutes after it started, what you think you're saying is, I respect your time. What the room registers is, this person is already off balance, already performing contrition before they've even sat down. And when you say sorry after someone bumps into you in the hallway, when they bumped into you, what you're communicating is something deeper and darker. That your physical presence in a space requires an apology. That you simply existing in someone's path is your fault. None of this is conscious, and that's what makes it dangerous. You're not choosing to undermine yourself. You're running a script that was installed decades ago. And the script says, when in doubt, apologize. When uncomfortable, apologize. When taking up space, apologize. Shrink first, speak second. I have watched this happen in meetings and in boardrooms with brilliant executives who pre-apologize before every contribution. I've watched it happen at my own dinner table when one of my kids says sorry for asking me a question. I should be grateful they're asking. And every time, the same thing happens. The apology undercuts whatever comes next. The idea is good, but it arrived on its knees. Exhibit C, the dilution problem. Here's the part that connects this to something bigger than social dynamics. When you say I'm sorry 50 times in one day about nothing, those words stop working when they need to. Think about it from the other side. If somebody in your life apologizes to you constantly for being late, for asking questions, for existing, for anything, and then one day they come to you and say, I'm really sorry, I made a mistake and I want to own it. How would that land with you? Most likely it's going to land the same as every other sorry they've offered, which is to say it barely lands at all. Because sorry has become their resting state and not a meaningful act. You have diluted the single most important word in your relational vocabulary. The word that rebuilds trust. The word that tells someone, I can see that I hurt you and I'm taking responsibility. The word that, when used correctly, can repair a relationship or a friendship or a professional relationship. You've worn it out on hallway collisions and email response times. As a lawyer, I am very particular about language in contracts. I would never use a defined term loosely throughout a document because it would strip the term of its legal meaning. If material breach appears on every page for every minor issue, then when an actual material breach occurs, that language has no teeth. It's been diluted into meaninglessness. That's exactly what happens with sorry. If everything is an apology, then nothing is. And the people who need your real apology, your partner, your kids, your closest friends, are getting a word that's been emptied of its weight by overuse. They deserve better. Your apology should arrive with the force of something rare, because rare things carry value and common things don't. Exhibit D, the replacement language. So we shouldn't say sorry all the time. Fine. What do you say instead? Because the instinct to apologize unnecessarily does not go away just because you understand it. You'll need to replace the words I'm sorry. You need language that accomplishes what you were actually trying to accomplish. Being considerate, being respectful, being collaborative, but without surrendering your ground. Here's what I started doing, and I'll be honest, it felt uncomfortable at first because my sorries were so automatic that removing them felt like I was being rude. I wasn't. I was being direct. There's a difference. Instead of sorry, can I ask you a question? Say, I have a question. That's it. No disclaimer, no apology for being curious. I have a question. The room won't flinch. The meeting doesn't stop. And you asked it without kneeling first. Instead of sorry, but I disagree, say, I see it differently. Here's why. That's not confrontational, it's professional, and it communicates confidence rather than hesitation. Instead of sorry, I'm late, I say thank you for your patience or thanks for waiting. This is a complete inversion. Instead of diminishing yourself, you're elevating the other person. Same consideration, totally different energy. Another example is, instead of saying sorry to bother you, I say, do you have a minute? Again, no apology for needing someone's attention. You're not a bother. You're a person with a need. And asking for someone else's time is not an offense. And instead of saying sorry when someone bumps into you, I say nothing, or I say, you're good, because I didn't do anything. And apologizing for someone else's action is the clearest sign that the reflex has overridden your reasoning. Each of these are small shifts. They don't require therapy or a personality overhaul. They require noticing. And the more you notice, the more you'll hear how often you've been apologizing for having a voice. So let's turn to the objections now. I've got two for today. Objection 1. Matt, saying sorry is just being polite. It's having manners. It's how we were raised. It makes interaction smoother. You're overthinking this. And I can understand why it feels that way. And again, I'm not arguing against politeness or truly appropriate apologies. I'm arguing against reflexive self-diminishment disguised as politeness. There's a difference between being considerate and being apologetic. You can be warm and kind and respectful and gracious without leading with an apology. Thank you for your patience is just as polite as sorry I'm late. But one of them positions you as someone who values the other person's time. The other one positions you as someone who has committed an offense. And the words are different, which means a different posture, and over time, the way people perceive you will be different. Politeness doesn't require you to apologize for your existence. If it does, it's not politeness, it's performance. Second objection. This sounds like toxic confidence. Some people should apologize more, not less. The world is full of people who never say sorry and should. Absolutely. And this episode is not for those people. This episode is for the opposite person, the person who apologizes too much or doesn't keep track of how much they apologize. People who apologize too easily and for things that don't warrant it are my target audience today. The person whose instinct it is to shrink before they speak. The person who has diluted their apology so thoroughly that when they actually need it, it's weightless. The world absolutely has a problem with people who never apologize. But it also has a problem with people who apologize for everything. And the second problem gets a lot less attention because it looks like good manners from the outside. But from the inside, it feels like you're constantly asking permission to take up space. And nobody should have to live that way. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, here is what I want to leave you with. The words I'm sorry should mean something. They should carry weight. They should arrive in a conversation and change the temperature. I'm sorry should tell the person across from you, I see what I did and I own it. And I'm telling you this because this relationship matters more to me than my ego. That's incredibly sacred. That's one of the most important things a human being can say to another human being. And we are burying it under a mountain of reflexive, empty, habitual apologies for being late and asking a question or existing in a hallway. I personally want my apologies to land. I want them to be rare enough and intentional enough that when I say the words to my partner, to my kids, to a colleague, to a friend, they stop what they're doing and they listen because they know I don't say it casually. I don't throw it around. I don't use it to smooth over discomfort. And when I say I'm sorry, I have something to be sorry for. On the other side of that, I want to stop apologizing for the things that make me a full person. For having questions, for having opinions, for needing someone's time, for being 2 minutes behind schedule, for disagreeing, or for being in the room at all. Those things do not require forgiveness, they require confidence. And confidence is not arrogance. Confidence is the quiet belief that you are allowed to be here, to speak, to need, and to take up space without anyone's permission. Stop apologizing for having a voice. Start using it. And save I'm sorry for the moments that actually need it. Because those moments will come. And when they do, you want those words to still mean something. Let's talk about a few things that you can do to take these ideas out of the courtroom and into the real world. First, the 24-hour count. As I mentioned at the onset of the episode, I'm challenging you for one day, track every time you say I'm sorry. Put it on your phone or a note in your pocket. And at the end of the day, go through that and say, how many of these were actual apologies for actual mistakes? And how many were reflexive? I'm confident that the number is going to surprise you. And that awareness alone will start to change your habit. Second, the swap. Pick 3 unnecessary sorries from your count and replace them. Sorry, can I ask a question becomes I have a question. Sorry, I'm late becomes thank you for waiting. Sorry to bother you becomes do you have a minute? Practice the swap 3 times this week and notice how different the room responds. Notice how differently you feel. Third, the real one. This week, deliver one genuine apology. Find something you actually owe someone, a moment where you fell short, a conversation you mishandled, or a commitment that you didn't honor. Look them in the eye and say the words with specificity and accountability. No filler, no deflection, just ownership. And notice how different that feels from the 50 hollow ones you normally scatter throughout your day. That's what I'm sorry is supposed to feel like, and that's the weight it's supposed to carry. That's the case for today. If you caught yourself in any of this, if you realized you've been apologizing your way through your own life, I would love to hear about it. Post your thoughts with hashtag the case for and tell me, what's the sorry you're going to stop saying? And what are you going to say instead? Your apology is valuable. Stop giving it away for free. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, whatever your case is, don't be afraid to build it and carry it out into the real world.